The first one arrived in the spring of 2015. A bright blue card with a picture of the Grand Canyon, the handwriting tight cursive. A little slanted to the right was unmistakably said, "Still breathing the dust. Wish you were here." Signed, DM. My heart froze. Danny, my brother, he died on a rainy night, October '82. I was there, I heard the metal, the sirens, and the silence. We buried him with his leather jacket. And a photo of us fishing by the lake, and now, after 30 years, his handwriting was back. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, some twisted joke. But the next postcard came 2 weeks later. This time, it showed Niagara Falls. Same handwriting, same strange message, felt the raw, still listening. That night, I went up to the attic and pulled out the old box. Inside were photographs, letters, and the last note he ever wrote. I stared at it for a long time. The loops, the slant, it was identical. This wasn't my imagination. Someone or something was writing to me. The third postcard came from Texas. Dusty red and faded. It showed a roadside diner we used to stop at during long drives with Dad. The message said, "Best coffee, still tastes like 1978. I could almost hear his laugh, that uneven chuckle he had when something truly dumb made him happy. Each card felt like it reached deeper, pulling out things I hadn't thought about in decades. Things I thought I had forgotten, or buried, or just left behind. But they were still there, waiting. Then came the postcard from New Orleans. The handwriting was shakier, like it had been written in a hurry, or with a trembling hand. The card said, "Still love the music here. Wish you could dance like you used to." That hit me harder than I expected. We used to dance at weddings. Awkward, clumsy, but we always ended up laughing. I sat with that memory for a long time, not moving, just letting the warmth and the ache settle in. Started keeping them in a drawer by my bed. The postcards, each one a small window into the past. Each one pulling at something inside me. I stopped trying to explain it. I didn't tell my wife or my kids. I couldn't. How do you say out loud that someone long gone might still be talking to you, or through you? I just waited, and every few weeks, another would arrive, from places we'd been, and places we'd never had. The last card came on a Tuesday. No stamp, no postmark, just slipped into the mailbox like it had always been there. The picture was black and white, old and soft. It showed the two of us, Danny and me, sitting on the hood of Dad's car, arms around each other, smiling like we had the whole world ahead of us. On the back, just 7 words. "Thanks for remembering. You always kept me alive, D." I held that last postcard in my hands for what felt like an hour. I read those words over and over. "Thanks for remembering. You always kept me alive." I thought I was holding paper, but it felt heavier, like memory had weight. I walked to the garage, opened the old toolbox where we used to hide things as kids. Inside, under a layer of dust, was the tiny army man he once lost in 1979. I smiled. I hadn't forgotten at all that night. I sat on the porch, alone, stars above, coffee in hand, everything quiet except for the crickets and the wind in the trees. I didn't cry, not this time. I just breathed and listened. It felt like he was there. Not as a ghost, not as something haunting, but as part of me, part of my story. Danny wasn't sending postcards anymore, but maybe he didn't need to. Maybe I finally heard everything he wanted to say. Sometimes I wonder if the postcards were ever real, or if they were just memory's way of whispering back. Maybe grief has hands. And it writes when we forget how to speak. But I know this, when I look at the mail now, I pause, just for a second. I still expect to see his handwriting, still half hope for one more message. Not because I need proof, but because I miss him. And maybe that's enough. Maybe remembering is what keeps love breathing, even after all the goodbyes. Each postcard felt like it knew exactly when to arrive. Like it waited for the right moment, not too soon, not too late. I stopped checking the mailbox every day, but somehow I always knew when to expect the next one, and when it came, there was no surprise, just that same quiet ache in my chest, and a feeling like someone had just whispered in my ear. I started talking to him out loud. In the car, while washing dishes, while standing in line at the grocery store. Just small things, like I used to. I didn't know if anyone else would understand or believe me, so I never brought it up. Not at dinner, not during holidays, not even when I held the cards in my hands. But they became a part of my life. Quiet as breath, I started keeping them. In order, by date and place. A small shoebox under the bed. Sometimes I'd take them out just to run my fingers over the handwriting. Like touching the past could make it stay a little longer. One night, I dreamed I was back at the lake. The one from the old photo. The water was still, the sky endless and soft. I heard his voice behind me, not loud, just enough. He said, "It's all right, you're doing fine." And when I turned, he was gone. I woke up with tears on my pillow. But not the heavy kind. They felt light, like something had been let go. Like a knot I'd carried for years had finally loosened, not undone, just eased. After that, I didn't get another postcard for a long time. Weeks passed, then months, and at first I waited, then I worried. And finally, I understood. Maybe that was the last thing he needed me to feel. That I was okay without the messages, that I could carry him without needing more reminders. So I stopped checking the mail every day, but still, sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, or I hear an old song we used to love, I smile, because some memories don't need postage. There was one postcard I kept separate from the rest, not because it was different, but because it felt final. It came in a plain white envelope. No image, no color, just folded paper with the words, "You're not alone, and you never were, D." It wasn't dramatic, it didn't explain anything, it just settled something, like he knew I still had doubts. Like he wanted to close the door gently, not slam it shut. I kept that one in my wallet. Still, 2 years have passed since the last card. The box is still under my bed. The photos inside have curled at the edges, and the ink is starting to fade. Sometimes I wonder if the paper will outlast the feeling. But then I remember the words. You're not alone. And I believe it. Not because he sent them, but because they're true. He's part of me now, not in the mail, not in the handwriting, but in how I live, in how I remember now and then. I tell the story to myself out loud, not for anyone else, just for me. I speak it like prayer, like ritual, like promise, and in those moments, I hear his voice again, not from outside, but from the quiet space. Inside memory, and I think this is what love looks like when it learns how to stay, not through presence, but through echoes. And I smile, because even silence can feel like someone saying, "I'm still here." I started noticing other things, not signs, not ghosts, just quiet reminders. The way the porch light flickered when I sat down with my coffee, or how the air smelled like rain right before I thought of him. I stopped trying to explain them. Not everything has to be understood to be real. Sometimes things just are, and that's enough. Like memory itself, it doesn't always make sense, but it never lies. One afternoon, I saw a boy riding a bike down the street. Red helmet, legs too long for the frame, and for a second I thought it was him. I knew it wasn't. Of course I did, but my heart still skipped, not from pain, but from joy, because, even for a second, something inside me believed he was back. And maybe that's what memory does best. It gives us one more second with the people we miss the most now. When I look at old photographs, I don't just see what was. I see what stayed. The way his smile still makes mine appear. Even now, I see it in my son's eyes, in my own hands, when I tie a knot the way Dad taught us. In the way I pause before I speak, thinking of how he'd say it. He isn't gone, not really. He's just everywhere I've been since he left.